Hey everybody, this is Greg Petix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the Petixonian Institute of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at The Crusaders, Volume 1, Operation Bucharest. This is a comic published in 1974 from Crusader Comics, which was an imprint of Jack T. Chick Publications. If you don't recognize the name Jack T. Chick, I'm sure you know of his work. He's the guy who makes all these little Bible tracts that you find left in phone booths and pumpkin patches and various and sundry places. They're just little Bible tracts, but they also do weird little stories, and it's kind of a hateful form of Christianity. It's a very ugly type of Christianity he espouses, and these are pretty insane, and I recommend you get these because they're basically hate literature, but they're fascinating in how twisted and weird they are. But in 1974, he decided to make like full-size color comics, I guess to compete with the Marvel and DC and Archie, and he came out with this. He wrote the issue. He wrote all of the Chick tracks, and he drew about half of them, and he had this other artist who did the other Chick tracks named Fred Harper, and you can tell the ones that he drew because they're good. Fred Harper's a really good illustrator, amazing artist, and he draws this comic and this cover as well. And this isn't his best work. I think having to do like a full-length comic book, it was a little new for him. He was used to drawing these little tracks that were like, 16 pages, tiny pages. But still, there's some amazing illustration in here, and he's got the goods, this guy. We see an ad for all of his little tracks here. There's like 150 of them, I think. He started making them in the 60s. And I think continued to make them all the way up through the 90s. And now they just reprint them constantly. So we start off with this story. The Crusaders is kind of trying to get some mainstream appeal. It's almost like a spy espionage thriller. And, with action and adventure. But it's really just a proselytizing story to get people to believe in Christianity. So we start off in Bucharest, and we see this informer. He's a rat. And he's telling these communist soldiers that there's a house down there, and they're Christians, and they're reading a Bible. So apparently, in Romania at the time, even owning a Bible was a capital offense. And I'm not even sure if that's true. Jack T. Chick says a lot of things that aren't true in his comics. Many things that weren't true. So I don't even know if it was really like this. I know that in communist countries, it was frowned upon to be Christian. It wasn't the best thing. But this makes it seem like these Romanian soldiers are just monsters. So they break into this house. Everyone's, calmly reading a Bible, basking in the glow of Christ's love. And they crack down the door. And they're just totally brutal. This cute little girl, they're like, this guy looks like he's going to hit her with his billy club. So they confiscate the Bible. It's like the one Bible they had. Basically, there's so few Bibles there, they have to share it and pass it around. Excuse me. I got the flu. I still wanted to do this video, though. Sorry about that. So they put all these Christians in trucks. I guess they're going to send them off to the gulag. And two of the prisoners are chatting. They say, one of them says, let's pray that Dr. Kozlov will be successful in his trip to visit the Christians in America. So there's this guy, Dr. Kozlov, who's in America trying to get more Bibles and trying to appeal to American Christians. So now we're in a little church outside of Chicago. And I didn't mention this before, but the colors in this are way different than any mainstream comic coloring at the time. It's newsprint paper, but whatever process they use is so different. The colors are much more, just rich. They're solid. You don't really see... The blacks are very solid. A lot of times in normal comics, there'd be like flecks of white in them. Look how good he is as an illustrator, Fred Carter, though. Look at this tree. It's just a silhouette of these tree branches. That's some really detailed stuff. So Dr. Kozlov is talking to this other Christian bigwig. I don't know really what his position is. And he's saying, hey, I got these two guys. They're going to do this mission for us to get the Bible into Romania. And this other guy's kind of doubting him. He's like, are you sure these guys can pull it off? Sounds like they have pretty doubtful pasts. And so we're introduced to the two Crusaders. Timothy Emerson Clark, he was like a Special Forces Green Beret. Speaks 8 languages. It looks like when he was in Nam, he was wounded during an ambush. I think his whole squad was wiped out, or platoon. He was rescued by a Christian native, and while he was recuperating, a missionary read to him from the Bible the whole time. And he converted him. He converted him into a radiant Christian. And then we meet the other member of the Crusaders, James Carter. And James Carter was like, back in the day in Chicago, he was like bad Leroy Brown. He was just the meanest mofo on the streets. Everyone was afraid of him. He would just, pick fights with people. But there was this old guy in the neighborhood. He was a preacher. And he had loved and prayed for Jim since he was a child. And he would always confront Jim and, try to tell him the good news. And everyone thought he was crazy. They're like, oh my God, this guy's looking for trouble. What is this preacher doing? And yeah, Jim pulls out a knife on him. And this guy's fearless, this old preacher. And this kind of shows that, like, Jack T. Chick has such a loose grasp of reality. Like, he seems to have no knowledge about how people really think and talk. Because we see him, he's like, he says, your father is the devil. If Christ gave him permission, then you can go ahead and kill me. And, Jim answers him pretty sensibly in my mind. Wow, preacher, you're too much. You really believe that, Jazz? Because he's basically spouting fairy tale nonsense to him. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, if you didn't grow up in the world of Christianity, if someone was explaining this belief system to you, you'd be like, that sounds nuts. That sounds like the Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus. And, but this shows how, like, Jack T. Chick just has no awareness of the way the brain works. So then he says something like, let me tell you about how Jesus was born. His mother was Mary. She was a virgin. Nobody ever touched her. The creator of the universe fixed it so Mary could have a baby without a human father. And that child happened to be God Almighty in the shape of a baby boy. And then all of a sudden, Jim is like, man, that's out of sight. Why didn't someone tell me this before? Like, now this fairy tale nonsense makes him go, well, that sounds like that's righteous. Yeah, tell me more. After like 2 minutes of talking to him. So right then and there, he gets down on his knees and the preacher prays with him and Jim becomes a Christian. So end of the 2 flashbacks. And here we meet the guys in the flesh. And they're super cool dudes. They're very of their time in 1974. They're the height of cool. So they got this plan for him, very James Bond, where there's an underground printing press has been assembled in Romania, outside of Bucharest. But they don't have, the Bible. The last Bible was confiscated. So they made a microfilm of this excellent translation of the Bible. And Tim and Jim have got to smuggle it in to Romania. And it's going to be very, lots of intrigue. I like this panel here where they're saying how, being a Christian in Romania is very dangerous. And this woman's in a cell and the rats are eating her maggot-ridden food. Really well drawn rat by Fred Carter. So they agree to go. Actually, it's kind of weird. They say, well, we have to pray on it for a few days. So it just seems like, why? This seems like something God would want you to do, right? So 3 days later, they say, yep, we're in. We feel that it's the Lord's will that we go. It's like, I think 3 days ago, you felt that it was the Lord's will that you bring the Bible to Romania. That seems like God would want that. So, this mission they're on, they're beset at every turn by like secret enemies of Christianity and communists and KGB people. So when they go to get their passport, this woman recognizes him. She says, oh, you're Timothy Emerson Clark? Are you related to the U.S. ambassador of France? And he says, yes, that's my uncle. And she's really a KGB mole. And this is something in Jack T. Chick comics, very prevalent. From the first panel we meet her, you could tell she's a bad person because she's ugly. And in Jack T. Chick comics, all non-Christians are repulsive and ugly and ruddy and sweaty. And they're just gross. You know, good Christians like Tim and Jim, look at them. They're all cool and collected, incredibly handsome. Their skin's nice and smooth and perfect. So she goes off to relay the information to her KGB overlords. She's telling them that Timothy Emerson Clark's coming to Romania. Man, she's horrendous. She looks like a Punch and Judy doll. So the KGB gets the information, and they hatch this plot. I don't even think they know that. They have microfilm, but they figure because Timothy Emerson Clark is the nephew of Timothy Emerson Clark. They both have the same name. So they figure while the young Timothy's here, the Crusader, they're going to do their old KGB trick and have one of their like really beautiful, hot agents seduce him. And they'll take film of it, and then they can blackmail him and his uncle. And their reasoning is just so ridiculous. And it's just like, they figure because they share the same name, everyone will just mistakenly think that it's the French ambassador, the uncle, who's, despoiled this woman's innocence. And they're going to make a big international incident out of it. It just seems silly. But see what I mean? Look at this guy. He looks like a fucking hemorrhoid. He's just so repulsive, and he's just sweating and shaking, and everything he says, he's screaming. He's just a really foul person. So now we cut back to the Crusaders, and they're hatching their little plot, how to get into Romania and how to smuggle in the microfilm. They're going to put in a cigarette. They're going to roll it up and disguise it as a cigarette. Oh my God, look at that guy. I just want to pop his head like a zit. This is gross. I like this panel here, though. This is after they hatch their plot, like I said, and they're all ready to go. Kozlov says, hey, before you go, let's all pray for a successful mission. And then they're basked in this heavenly light. At first, I didn't know what I was looking at. I was like, what the hell happened? Was there an explosion? And just look at what a great illustrator Fred Carter is. It's like, it's negative because the light is so bright. Just really good stuff. This is like classical illustration. Okay, sorry, getting back to the KGB guy. They're working on their plan, and they find the perfect woman. She has a perfect record of 19 entrapments. She's been doing this for a while, seducing enemies of, Mother Russia. But he's just a total pig to her. She does not like him. And she basically is threatening him. She's like, if you fail, we're going to hurt your parents. We're going to fuck you up. But, she's a good commie, so she's into the mission. She just really hates this guy, as anyone would. Look at this panel here. Speaking of the coloring being different, you could never have this kind of gradation. This nice color in a normal comic book at the time. So they're flying to Paris first. So the KGB know this. They know their itinerary. So they send the spy woman, the femme fatale, to Paris, so they can supposedly have a meeting there. They're going to engineer some kind of meeting between the Crusaders and her. So this KGB agent kind of like roughs her up, and then Jim Carter kicks the shit out of him because he's still a badass. He's a badass for Jesus now. And she thanks them. She's like, oh, thank you for rescuing me. Want to share my taxi? And she's already trying to seduce him, showing off her gams. So she tells them at dinner, she says, hey, I'm heading for Bucharest tomorrow. And they're like, hey, so are we. What a coincidence. And she's trying to use her feminine wiles on him. But they do get into a religious discussion. She's a total atheist. Surprisingly, she's still allowed to be beautiful, even though she's talking against the Bible. But even here, her face is drawn uglier than normal. It's just thinking non-Christian thoughts makes you temporarily turn ugly. So now they're in Bucharest. And she's worming her way into Tim's heart. They almost kiss. But then Jim interrupts. Jim kind of is suspicious of her. He even says, yeah, she reminds me of a girl named Delilah, from the Bible. The one who tricks Samson. So Jim successfully makes the, what do you call it? He gets the microfilm to the agent he was supposed to. So it's a successful mission. Now the Romanians will be able to print their Bibles. So then because they've been threatening her, she's desperate to seduce Tim. So she does one last-ditch effort. It's their last night in town, and she knocks on his hotel door, and she says, Tim, darling, I'm lonely. And Tim, unlike most men, just says, I'll show you how you can never be lonely again. And then behind this two-way mirror, there's cameras. The KGB are filming the whole thing. So the next day, the piggish commie head says, let me see the film. And his underling says, you won't be happy, Colonel, because all the film shows is he spent the night converting her to Christianity, and he succeeds. She gets down on her knees crying, and she became a Christian. And Tim is so good at his job, even the cameraman became a Christian. I think that's kind of funny. He's really good. And then this ending is very odd. So she's saying goodbye to them. They're in this gold VW Bug. She says, I'm ready to lay down my life for Jesus now. And they say, we're praying for you, Sophia. See you in heaven. And then these guys are right here about to grab her. There she is. Grab her. So it appears that these guys just drove off. I mean, they're right there. They see these guys running for Sophia, trying to grab her. And they apparently take off because the last panel, we see her in a gulag. She's in rags. It's snowing. But she's saying, Dear Lord, thank you for sending Timothy and Jim to tell me about your love. And the Soviet guard just says, Sophia, get back to your cell. So that's the ending. Pretty harsh. So I don't know. The Crusaders don't seem that effective. They seem like pretty badass guys, but they just let her get taken and drive off, apparently. So we have a little lesson here in the inside back cover. And he tells us, the reader, he says, because Sophia accepted Christ, this is what her reward will be. And this list sounds like something you would tell a child. It is so infantile and inane. She will have a glorious new body that can travel at incredible speeds and pass through walls. That sounds like the Martian Manhunter. Her body will be without pain, spot, or blemish. She will have tremendous riches and powers, which I didn't even think good Christians are supposed to care about riches. I thought Jesus always preached against that. She will participate in a fabulous banquet given by Christ in heaven for his church. So basically, she gets to go to this great all-you-can-eat buffet in heaven. And if she, because she became a Christian. These are all just, it just sounds so inane to me. It's ridiculous. She will go to a birthday party where there will be balloons and unicorns. I just made that up, but that's just as ridiculous as the stuff they're saying. And here we have ads for the other Crusaders up to number 17. I have most of these, so we'll definitely will be looking at more of these because these are crazy. So there you go. Journey into the mind of Jack T. Chick, not a very pleasant one. He had just a very ugly view of the whole world. I know he was, the Christians are shown as good, but anyone who's not Christian is just shown as a horrible, wrong-headed, raving nut. And, I'm on the other side of the coin, but I don't think all Christians are raving, horrible people. Some of them are, but I know many Christians and they're totally nice people. I don't know why they believe what they believe. It sounds nuts to me. I just realized, though, the irony is that Jack T. Chick always depicts non-believers as these sweaty, unattractive, ugly, repulsive people. And here I am kind of slamming Jack T. Chick and his beliefs. And I'm kind of very ugly and unattractive myself. So it's like, shit, I'm a Jack T. Chick character come to life. So I don't know. But that's it for the Crusaders number 1. I hope you enjoyed it. And go with God. Good night.